So we're in the middle of learning the topic of Dira B'Tachtoinim. And the mechanism by which we transform the entire world into a Dira for Hashem. And the way Dr. Rebbe explained it in the previous weeks is that we start with being Maila, our own Nefesh HaChiyunos, our own Nefesh HaBahamis, our own animal soul, animating soul. And every single one of us, then we have a chelik ba'olam, we have a portion in the world, and when we elevate our Nefesh HaChiyunos, we drag along with it, and we take along also our entire chelke ba'olam. But it all starts with being Maila, our Nefesh HaChiyunos, being Maila, our Nefesh HaBahamis, which if you recall, that's why Dr. Rebbe said in the beginning of the Perek, towards the beginning of the Perek, talked about the idea of Kol Atzmoisei Teimarna, that when you learn, and when you're daven, it's not enough to, for sure, it's definitely not enough to think the words. You have to actually express them with your mouth, because Akim Masfasav Have Maisa, because the movement of the lips, that's considered a Maisa, that involves the Nefesh HaChiyunos. But more than that, the more energy that you put into your davening, the more energy you put into your learning. So all that energy, that is energy of your Nefesh HaChiyunos, energy of your Nefesh HaBahamis, of your animating soul, which is now being elevated to Kedusha. And the whole Dira B'Tachtoinim is dependent on you, the whole realization of Hashem's desire, which is to have a world which is a world of Kedusha, a world of Dira B'Tachtoinim, that starts with elevating one's Nefesh HaChiyunos to Hashem. We're going to start again, page 96. It's from almost halfway down the top of the page, and the first words on the line is Ubezeh Yuvan, and that's where we're starting. Ubezeh Yuvan, with this we'll understand why our sages spoke so highly regarding how important, how great tzedakah is. And they said Sheshkula keneged kol ha-mitzvos. They said that tzedakah is the equivalent of all the mitzvahs. If you put it on a scale, all the mitzvahs, tzedakah is the equivalent of them all.
That's why it said that Tzimi Mavet.
Doesn't say Talmud Torah, Kineg Kula. How does you reconcile that?
That's Bavli, it's Yishalmi, maybe. No, it says it.
That's Purim Torah, that's Purim Torah.
Talmud Torah Kineg Kula is a Mishnah. So the Yishalmi can't argue on the Mishnah. But Reuven, I can always count on you to.
What?
I can always count on you to say what the next question is going to be. If you look on page Mem Test, 3 lines from the top, what are the words over there?
Oh, Masha
Dr. Rebbe is going to ask that, but we'll deal with that when the time comes. Right now, we're dealing with tzedakah.
Questions, I always forget my question. That's the problem. I have to ask it immediately, otherwise I forget it.
But that's why all these classes are on video. You can always go and look at it in the video and see your question that you asked and remind yourself.
Then it's too late to ask you.
So, the Gemara says in Baba Basra, the Gemara says that tzedakah shkula keneged kol ha-mitzvahs, that the Gemara, that tzedakah is the equivalent of all the mitzvahs. In the Bavli of Baba Basra. Okay. And moreover, b'chol Talmud Yerushalmi, and the entire Talmud Yerushalmi, he nikras b'shem mitzvah stam. When it wants to talk about tzedakah, it doesn't even say tzedakah, it just says mitzvah. Whenever it says the word mitzvah, you know it's talking about tzedakah, because that is the mitzvah. Kikacha yehergel halashan, that's the way they used to speak. That was the vernacular. Likrei tzedakah b'shem mitzvah stam. They call tzedakah by the name of mitzvah, because it is the ideal mitzvah, the prototypical mitzvah. So why is it? Why is it that tzedakah shkula keneged kol ha-mitzvahs, that tzedakah is the equivalent of all the mitzvahs? It's one of those statements that we don't have to work too hard to explain. More people have a problem with Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam than tzedakah shkula keneged kol ha-mitzvah. So you go out in the world, tzedakah, equivalent of all the mitzvahs. Everyone's going to shake their head. Yeah, of course, tzedakah, very important, helping someone else. If you can go tell someone Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam that Torah is the equivalent of everything, that they already have an issue with. I don't mean here in Flatbush. I'm talking about in the wider world. But why taka is tzedakah the equivalent of all the mitzvahs?
It's much easier to give tzedakah than do all the mitzvahs.
So first of all, you're saying it's much easier. I'm going to take issue with that in a moment. But besides for that, when we say that it's the equivalent of all the mitzvahs, that means that whatever all the mitzvahs are, tzedakah has all of them combined. How? How is tzedakah the equivalent of pidyon haben? How is tzedakah the equivalent of eating kosher? Like what's the connection? It's a bunch of different mitzvahs. And this has been Adam Lachaveri, many of the mitzvahs are bin Adam Lamakim. What does it mean that tzedakah is the equivalent of all the mitzvahs? You want to say it's a very important mitzvah? Fine, I accept that. But what does it mean? What does it mean that it's the equivalent of all the mitzvahs? Which makes it sound as if whatever every mitzvah has, tzedakah has that also. It's the equivalent, it's the same thing. And why is tzedakah such a great mitzvah? So you said that tzedakah is easier than all the other mitzvahs.
That's an argument to say it's not shakar kineged kulam.
I don't think that tzedakah is easier than all the mitzvahs. I think that tzedakah, obviously it depends on the person.
Yeah.
But I think giving tzedakah is probably the hardest of the mitzvahs.
If you're tight-fisted.
To go, it's easy for me to shake a lulav. It's easy for me to eat kosher. It's easy for me to put up a mezuzah. To give tzedakah, and I don't just mean to give a nickel, but to give tzedakah the way the Torah says to give tzedakah, the way you're supposed to give tzedakah, is very far from easy. Why is tzedakah the hardest? Why, such a hard mitzvah? Why is it so hard to give tzedakah more so than other mitzvahs?
Coming out of your sweat.
Because what?
It's coming out of your sweat.
It's coming out of your sweat. But to put it into different words, you put your entire neshama into that dollar. This dollar isn't a dollar. This dollar represents me waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning and running out of the house and having to go to catch an early minyan and then running to work and spending all those hours of work and all the pressure at work and everything and my deadlines.
And the abuse too.
And again, regardless of the abuse that you get at work and regardless of what kind of work that you do, people put their entire being into their money, into their paycheck. And then when you go and you take that dollar and you give it to tzedakah, you're giving all of that, you're being maila all of that. Or to put it in different words, if the function and the purpose of every single one of the mitzvahs is to elevate the nefesh achayunas, is to elevate your nefesh to Hashem. So in every mitzvah, how much of your nefesh goes into mitzvah? Think about it. How much of your nefesh? You ate some kosher, you put up a mezuzah, you shook a lulav, you davened, you learned a little. Whatever mitzvah it may be, how much of your neshama went into that mitzvah? Sometimes the hand part of your neshama, the koyach in your hand, sometimes the koyach in your foot, sometimes the koyach in your mouth, sometimes the koyach in your ears, whatever it may be. But tzedakah, when you give tzedakah, you're giving your entire neshama, the whole nefesh achayunis, the entirety of your being that went into making that money, into making that dollar, that entire nefesh achayunis is elevated to Hashem. So if the purpose of every single mitzvah, as the Alter Rebbe is saying over here, the purpose of every single mitzvah is to elevate one's nefesh abahamis and one's nefesh achayunis to kedusha, there is no mitzvah that gets anywhere near to accomplishing that goal as much as the mitzvah of tzedakah. Mitzvah of tzedakah elevates the nefesh achayunas much more so than any other mitzvah. And let's do this inside. Because the mitzvah of tzedakah is the primary of all the action mitzvahs, and is greater than all of them. All the purpose of all the mitzvahs is what is to elevate the nefesh achayunis to Hashem, because it is the nefesh achayunis that is doing the mitzvah, and is invested in the mitzvah, and therefore the nefesh achayunis becomes subsumed in the Eir and Sof, which is in the mitzvah that you're doing. There is no mitzvah in which so much of your neshama, of your nefesh achayunis, is invested in it, kibe mitzvah tzedakah, like tzedakah. Shebachol ha-mitzvahs, because in every single mitzvah, every single mitzvah when you're doing it, what goes into it? One koyach of your nefesh hachayunis. Whichever koyach of your neshama is invested in doing that mitzvah. And also, it's b'shas ma'isa mitzvah levad. It's only while you're doing the mitzvah. The koyach that I'm investing in the mitzvah is elevated. That koyach which I'm exerting while I'm doing the mitzvah. Avol b'tzedakah, but when a person gives tzedakah, sha'adam leisn migia kapav, that a person gives. A person gives from the labor of his hands, how they call koyach nafshei chiyunis, the entire koyach, all the energy of the nefesh ha'chiyunis, melubesh ba'asiyas malachtai, is involved in the work that the person does, or esek achar, any other type of business, and ishtaker boy moyis halalu, with which the person went and he earned this money. When you give it to tzedakah, they call nafshei chiyunis elul Hashem. Your entire nefesh Bahamis is elevated to Hashem. So the very reason why giving tzedakah is so difficult is why it's the greatest mitzvah. That's why it's difficult to give away $1. And we all imagine that if we were rich, we would give a lot of tzedakah. I don't know, maybe someone here is rich. I don't know anyone here at the table, but if those of you who are like me, we all imagine that if I had chves, that if I was a rich person and I made $1 million, $2 million, so what do I need so much money for? I'd become a very, very big Baal tzedakah.
There's a saying in Yiddish, alle Ormalat zijn een grijze stukken geibers. I mean, it's because of this truth, psychological.
Right? Sure. And people are very good parents until they have children. It's
So what about easy money? People give a lot of stuff, money came easy to them. Made a windfall profit in the market or so.
So the truth is that the easier a person makes the money, the easier it is to get tzedakah. But still, the word easier is the operative word over here. You remind me of a joke. The guy goes to a gas station, and it's $3 a gallon for the gas. So he goes to the guy by the window and says, "Why is the gas over here $3? Across the street, the gas is $2.29 a gallon." She says, "Why did you get the gas over there?" He says, "Because they ran out of gas." So he says, "When I run out of gas, I'm $1.99 a gallon." Yeah, it's easy to talk about, but the fact is, when people make money, and suddenly they find it's not so easy to give tzedakah. It's not so easy to give. And therefore, when someone does give tzedakah, even if he's a very wealthy person, deserves a lot of credit. It's not, we think, what's the big deal? Write out a check, $100,000. You made $1 million this year. What's $100,000? I would love to have $900,000. But this is the point that we're bringing out over here, is when you realize that the money you make, you put your neshama into it. That person who's a very wealthy person worked very, very hard to make that money. Again, most people. Today's actually, the world is changing a little in that way. But even so, the average person who's a wealthy person worked very hard for that money. When you're giving away the money, you're giving away yourself. You're giving away your work. And it's not easy. It's not easy. But that's why tzedakah is so amazing, because you're giving your entire self, and you're being ma'ila your entire self to kedusha. Now, to connect it to this week's parsha, it's interesting that this week's parsha, the name of the parsha is Truma. Truma means tzedakah. Truma means a donation. And what's very interesting is that the parsha begins with Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe Lemer, right? To speak to the Yidden, v'yichul li truma. They should give me tzedakah. What's the tzedakah for? Parsha, the pasuk didn't even say it. Then it says v'yichul li truma. What should they give? They should give zav, and they should give kassav, the gold, and the silver, and the copper. And then a few psukim later, so Hashem says, "Oh, v'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'soichem." I want you to make for me a mishkan, and I will dwell amongst you. Now you would think that logically the parsha should begin. That Hashem speaks to Moshe and tells him, "V'asu li mikdash." I want the Yidden to make for me a Beis HaMikdash. Now, since I need a Beis HaMikdash, how are we going to go about that? So therefore, v'yichul li truma. Please, make a fundraising drive. right? And we'll get money. It seems to be backwards. You're asking for the money, for the tzedakah, before you even said what the purpose of it is. But maybe this is based on this Tanya. It's possible that the message of this and the fact that the name of the parsha, which talks about the creation of the Mishkan, is teruma, which is tzedakah, tells us the whole idea of the Mishkan is taka, is to make this dir b'tachtonim, is to elevate everything to kedusha. So the fact that the Yidden had to give the teruma, it's not just a derech agav thing. By the way, Hashem says, I want a Mishkan. The fact is, if I want a Mishkan, I'm going to need gold and silver. How am I going to get the gold and silver? Okay, so I'll make a fundraising drive. In which case, it's like a necessary evil. The main thing is the Mishkan. And the tzedakah is by the way, because otherwise, without that, we can't have the Mishkan. But based on what we're learning over here in Tanya, we see that no, the tzedakah is what creates the Mishkan. How do we elevate this physical world to Hashem? And how do we make a Mishkan and a dir b'tachtonim? It's through the tzedakah. It's through the truma. And it's a whole new perspective, because most people, you turn to them and you ask them, why is tzedakah so great? As we started off at the beginning of the class, because we have to help another person. And there's definitely a truth to that. One of the reasons why tzedakah is so important and so great is because it's for helping the other person. But the point Alter Rebbe is saying over here is a different point altogether. It's not about the other person, it's about me. The reason why tzedakah is so great is because it elevates me more so than any other mitzvah. Why? Because the entirety of me is in this dollar which I'm giving to tzedakah. Now, I should point out that there are a lot of mitzvahs that cost money, as I'm sure you all are very aware. Soon coming up to Pesach, and it's what they say, it costs Hashena Matbeya. It's not cheap. And there are many mitzvahs that cost money. We're coming up Purim, you want to buy yourself a nice Megillah, it's going to cost you money. Purim Suda costs you money. So why is it daf and l'chayra? The same logic should apply. Same logic, that if the idea is that you're elevating, that when you take your money, which you put your neshama into, and you use it for kedusha, you're elevating not only the money, you're elevating everything that went into it, your entire being that went into that, into earning that money. So why only tzedakah? Why is only tzedakah the equivalent of all the mitzvahs? But I think the answer is somewhat obvious. At the end of the day, when you're spending the money on yourself, even if it's for mitzvahs and kedusha, it's not the same degree of bittul, of giving it away to Hashem, as it is when you actually take the money and you write the check, or today if you PayPal, or wherever it is, and you give it to the poor person, or you give it to the moisid that needs the money. It's an entirely different level of parting with the money which you earn, and this is the greatness of the mitzvah of tzedakah. So, at this point, we're ready to wrap up a good part of what we learned. We started off, and I want to go back. We're right now in Perek Lamed Zayin, but I want to go back to what we started off in Perek Lamed Hey and show how we wrap it up. We began Perek Lamed Hey with two questions. Question number one is, the why is it the why is it that Yiddishkeit is so fixated on and obsessed with Maisa? HaMaisa huwa ikar, le'amedra she'ikar ela HaMaisa. And you know, the mitzvah has to be dafka mitzvah Maisa. Why is the Yiddishkeit is such an action oriented religion? As mentioned, you look in the Torah. What is Torah? Do this and don't do that. That was one question we asked. And the next question we asked is, why is it that the neshama has to come down here into Olam Hazeh? Why does the neshama come down from above? And it enters into the guf and the nefesh achiyunas. It has to enter the neshama, which is mamish kedusha. It's in this incredible galus within the guf, within the nefesh achiyunas, and it never wins the battle unless the person becomes a tzaddik, which is not for most people. It's not within our ability to become a tzaddik. We can overcome the nefesh hamis. We struggle and we overcome, but we don't completely overcome it. We don't have a victory over it. So what's the point? What's the point of the neshama coming down and struggling for no purpose? Those are the two questions with which we began Perek Lamed Hey. And by now we already wrapped up, and we know the answer to those questions. And that is that Hashem wanted, as we mentioned, adir b'tachtonim. Once we understand the reason why Hashem created the world, as Alter Rebbe introduces in Perek Lamed Vav, based on the Medrash that Hashem Nis'av Hashem wanted to have a Dira B'Tachtonim. So therefore, why is it that Maisa is so important? Because Maisa is the lowest. You have the Seichel, you have the Midas, you have the Machshava, you have the Dibur. The very lowest faculty that we have is Koyach HaMaisa. It's what we have even in common with animals. So Dafki in Maisa, that's where Hashem wants the Dira. Hashem wants to be present in the lowest place, in the Maisa. And the same thing is, why does the Neshama come down over here into the Nefesh HaChayunis? Because the purpose is the Nefesh HaChayunis. That is the purpose. The purpose is, the Alter Rebbe says, we learned last week, the Neshama Atzma Einat Shricha Tikun, the Neshama itself does not need any Tikun, and the only reason why it comes down into this world is to elevate the Nefesh HaChayunis, but it doesn't elevate the Nefesh HaChayunis by transforming the Nefesh HaChayunis. But every single time it uses the Nefesh HaChayunis to do a mitzvah, it elevates the koyach of the Nefesh HaChayunis, and when it gives tzedakah, it elevates a great amount of the koyach of the Nefesh HaChayunis. And this is the purpose of the Neshama coming down here into this world. And Dr. Rebbe was another few lines over here. Then he says, Vigam, 3 lines in the bottom. Vigam mishe'eni nena migiyai. How about someone who has money but didn't work for the money?
Easy money.
Easy money. What?
Got Yerusha.
Got a Yerusha. Won the lottery. So l'chayra, maybe for that person giving tzedakah isn't so great. Think about it. If the reason for giving tzedakah is so great is because you're helping the other person, it doesn't make a difference how you got the money. It makes no difference. But the premise of the Alter Rebbe over here is that the greatness of tzedakah, the reason why it's shkula keneged kol ha-mitzvahs. In other words, the fact that helping someone else is great makes tzedakah a great mitzvah doesn't make it shkula keneged kol ha-mitzvahs. It doesn't make it the equivalent of all the mitzvahs. Why is it the equivalent of all the mitzvahs? Because the purpose of every mitzvah is to be ma'ilo the nefesh HaChayunis, and tzedakah does it more than any other mitzvah. But if a person made easy money, which by the way, it's easier for such a person to part with, I was speaking to someone that today we find philanthropy amongst younger people, younger wealthy people, in a greater degree than we have from the wealthy people of the older generation. There's a certain harchava, certain expansiveness with giving tzedakah. And I was talking about it with someone, and one of the answers that we thought perhaps the reason is that today, many of the people who are wealthy made it easier. You know, the people who 50 years ago, 60 years ago, they made the money, they did it in the harder way. They worked many years for it, and they saved, and they were at work for long hours. And today, many people, they become wealthy because you know, the right luck, the right place, the right time, with the internet, this kind of business, they got a tip or something of that sort. And again, the less neshama that goes into it, it's easier to give it away. But again, so the question we have over here is, what about someone who didn't earn his money? Says the Alter Rebbe, Mikol Makim still, and here's a very big chiddush. Because this money, regardless of how you earned it, but with this money, what could you have bought with this money? What is the potential within this money? You could have bought for yourself anything and everything that gives life, that gives you life, and that gives you pleasure, and that gives you enjoyment. So therefore, when you're giving away this money, even if you didn't invest your money, your neshama into it while you earned it, it has the potential of buying you anything that you want, and therefore, when you give it away, you are giving away mamish your neshama Hashem, which is interesting, because until now we're saying the dollar that you have, what's in this dollar? Actually, in the dollar that you earned, and you get your paycheck, right? Your neshama went into it, right? So when you give away the dollar, you're giving your neshama Hashem, your nefesh HaChayunis. Now we're saying, no, this dollar, it doesn't have your neshama in it because you didn't work hard to earn it, but it has the potential. So therefore, when you give it to tzedakah, you're giving away your potential life, and that also is an incredible big mitzvah, which is a bigger chiddush than the first part, where there it is. In actuality, that's the neshama. Over here, it's only the potential. And therefore, Chazal tell us, It says that although we know all mitzvahs are mekar of the geula, but tzedakah specifically is mekar of the geula. Why? Lefi shebetzedakah achas, with one tzedakah, ma'ila harbe menefesh achiyunas, a person elevates so much from the nefesh achiyunas, mashaloi hayachal lahalos mimena kol kach koiches. It's impossible to elevate so much koyach of the nefesh achiyunas, ubechinas, in so many aspects of the nefesh achiyunas, bekama mitzvahs ma'asiyas acheres, to many other mitzvahs ma'asiyas. Now, this idea of G'dayla Tzedakah Shemikareves Sagula is something that we heard from the Rebbe many times, repeatedly. And there's no question that if you want to say that there was one mitzvah which the Rebbe was a Zoyer Tfei, very constantly spoke about it and encouraged people with tzedakah. I mean, obviously, starting from the fact that every Sunday the Rebbe would stand and the Rebbe would give out dollars, and the purpose of the dollars, the Rebbe was making everyone a shliach mitzvah for tzedakah. But it wasn't only that. It was many times just after mincha or after ma'ariv, the Rebbe would speak, and then every time the Rebbe would speak, the Rebbe would give out dollars, or sometimes the Rebbe would give out dollars for tzedakah. Every time the giving out dollars was to give it to tzedakah, encouraging people to give it tzedakah. After every farbrengen, the Rebbe would give out the dollars to everyone. And then every time the Rebbe came into davening, every time the Rebbe came to davening, or when the Rebbe went to his car because the Rebbe was going to the mikvah, to the oil, the Rebbe was busy giving out the coins to the children to give to tzedakah. It was literally, tzedakah was something which is very, very high in the priority list. The Rebbe was trying to give us a message, the importance of tzedakah. And then the Rebbe also spoke about every child having a tzedakah pushka in their bedroom. Every child. To be mechanech children in the midst of tzedakah. And the Rebbe says every house has to have a tzedakah pushka. Then the Rebbe went further. The Rebbe said it's not enough that a house has a tzedakah pushka, but the tzedakah pushka has to be nailed into the wall. The Rebbe insisted. It's a strange thing. It's not enough that you have a tzedakah pushka, but it has to be, the Rebbe didn't say the word nailed, but it has to be affixed to your house. And the Rebbe explained, because it's not enough to have a tzedakah pushka in your house has to be a tzedakah pushka. It has to be part of the structure of your home. Tzedakah has to be part of the structure of your home. And many times people would go by the Rebbe, and the Rebbe would say, ask for brother to make sure not only to give tzedakah. Do you have a tzedakah pushka in your house? Do you have a tzedakah pushka in your place of work? A person went by with a medical issue. Is there a tzedakah pushka in the hospital room where you are? The Rebbe, tzedakah was a very big thing. I don't know if anyone here ever was by a Avram Fried concert, but every single concert, in the middle of the concert, he pulls out a tzedakah pushka and he puts $1 into it, and that's because the Rebbe told him to do that. The Rebbe said that every time by a concert, you should give tzedakah by the concert, so everyone should see that you're giving tzedakah, and that should be a hira l'rabim. It should be a dugma, an example. Back in the 80s, my father went by the Rebbe by dollars, and my father is a Rav in Michigan, so he went along together with the president of the shul, and he introduced the president of the shul, and sure enough, what did the Rebbe ask him? Is there a tzedakah pushka attached to the wall of the shul? There wasn't. The Rebbe said, here's $1, and I want you to put it into the tzedakah pushka, which you're going to attach to the wall of the shul. And they went back, and right away they attached the tzedakah pushka. They got one of those fancy pushkas which you attach to the wall. And that shows that the tzedakah is kavua. It's not just that it happens to be that there's a house, and it happens to be there's a tzedakah pushka, but it's kavua. And the Rebbe, on many occasions, the Rebbe mentioned that this idea, this kach in tzedakah, is because of gedela tzedakah shemekareves the gula. The tzedakah has this gula more than any other mitzvah to bring the gula. And why is it that tzedakah has this gula to bring the gula? That's something which we just learned about in Tanya just now. Now, we're talking here about the idea of dir b'tachtoinim. That's the topic of the last few prakim. And the last Perik, in Perik Lamed Vav, the Alter Rebbe mentioned that what we're looking for really is a recreation of what happened by Matan Torah. By Matan Torah, we had Ata Hareis Aladas Ki Hashem Hu Elokim Ein Od Milvadeh. By Matan Torah, we said that Hashem revealed Himself, and Ki Vayered Hashem Al Har Sinai. Hashem comes down on Har Sinai, and what we had was a dira b'tachtonim. Hashem came down here into this world. He was here. He was present.
Didn't last long.
It didn't last long, right? It didn't last. This mamish, the parshas that we're learning right now, it didn't last long because then the Yidden
didn't come from the Yidden.
Because there was the Chet HaEgel, and because of the Chet HaEgel, so we chased Hashem away, Kaviyachol, and then Hashem said that I need now you need to make a Mishkan. We need to start again from scratch. So this week's parsha, which even though the Egel is in Kisisa, but if you're according to Pirush Rashi, and there are different opinions, but according to Pirush Rashi, this week's parsha Truma is after the Chet HaEgel. Happened after the Chet HaEgel because Ein Muktam U'Mocher B'Torah, and the purpose was because we are trying to recreate what happened by Har Sinai. The Sfarnei, I don't know if I ever mentioned this, the Sfarnei actually says that right after Matan Torah, so Hashem tells the Yidden that Mizbach Adama, the whole thing about Mizbach Adama Tasali, if you can make for me a Mizbeach, and B'chol Makem Asher Askir Shmi Avei Elecha Ve'Rachticha, wherever you want, make a Mizbeach, I'll come and I'm going to bench you there. And the Sfarnei says that after the Matan Torah, the Yidden didn't need a Mishkan because the Shechina was everywhere. So wherever they wanted, they could have made a Mizbeach. B'chol Makem. And then because they did the Aveira, the Chet HaEgel, so now it was only right. And what are we building towards? We're building towards the time when Mashiach comes, and once again the whole world will be a place which is a machin for Hashem, a place which is a dwelling place for Hashem. Why didn't Matan Torah last? As you know that 40 days later there was Aveira. Why didn't Matan Torah last?
It was imposed on.
So we explained, right, that it was imposed upon them. The Gilui wasn't something which they earned. It didn't come, that the Zichuch, it wasn't that the refinement didn't come from below. The refinement came from above, and that's why it didn't last. That's what we learned in Perek Lamed Vav. And when Mashiach comes, because the refinement will be coming from below, through our Avodah, throughout the Galus, throughout the thousands of years of Galus, our Avodah and Torah and Mitzvahs and elevating our Nefesh HaChiyunis, therefore it'll be lasting and it'll be permanent. So what I would like to do now is connect this idea. We're standing here on Rosh Chodesh Adar, and we're 2 weeks away, literally, from Purim. I want to talk a little about Purim because this is very related to Purim. I believe that we spoke about this once in the past years of Purim, but it's mamash related to the Tanya, so I want to go over the ideas again. We know that it says in the Megillah that Kimu v'kiblu ha-Yehudim. And the Gemara says on this, that Kimu masha kiblu kvar. Which means that the Kabbalah, the Gemara, the Kabbalah, the Yidden were Mekabel, the Torah, it wasn't a complete Kabbalah. It was deficient. And there was a Meidar Rabba Le'iraisa. That's what the Gemara says, which means that the Yidden were able to come to Hashem afterwards and say, I know we accepted the Torah, but because Kaf Aleim Har Kigigis, because Hashem held Har Sinai over our heads, and Kaviyachol, He forced us to accept the Torah. So therefore, since we were forced to accept the Torah, that casts in doubt the validity of the whole Kabbalah. We could tell the Eibishter, we didn't really want to accept the Torah. But then, when the story of Purim happened, so then Kimu v'kibla Yehudim, then the Yidden were Mekabel. Yidden were Mekabel the Torah, and retroactively now we know that the Kabbalah Torah was a complete Kabbalah Torah. So what is it? This is a Maimer from the Alter Rebbe in Likutei Torah, and Torah the Alter Rebbe talks about this and tries to figure out what does this mean that the Kabbalah by Matan Torah wasn't complete. What's this whole business about Kaf Aleim Har Kigigis? What's this whole business of Hashem holding a mountain over their head? The Yidden said Nasa v'nishma. They said Nasa v'nishma. They accepted. And the next day Hashem says, either you accept or I'm going to kill you. What do you mean? We accepted. Imagine a chassan proposes to the Kabbalah. She says, I accept. And then he pulls out a gun and says, you don't accept, I'm going to kill you. What do you mean? I said I accept. Now I don't accept anymore. But I said I accept. So what's this whole idea of Kaf Aleim Har Kigigis B'chlal in the first place? And what was the Maila in the Kabbalah? In the Kabbalah, the Yidden were Mekabel the Torah by times of Purim. So Alter Rebbe explains that in Kabbalah, the word Har is an allegory. The word a mountain is an allegory for Chesed and Ahava. Avram is called a Har because Avram's Inyan was Chesed. Avram said he was Chesed. Avram was a Har, Yitzchak was a Sada, Yaakov was a Bayis. So a Har, why is Avram called a Har? Because Avram's Inyan was Ava and Chesed. L'cha Hashem ha-Gedula. Gedula is Hashem's Chesed. Look in the Rashi, beginning of Eschanan. Gedula is Chesed. So a Har, which is tall, is the idea of Chesed. So when we say Kaf Aleim Har Kegigis, when Hashem holds the mountain over the Yidden like a barrel, what does that mean?
It's an allegory then.
That means that Hashem held His Ahava for us over our head, not the Yirah, His Ahava, His love. He showered us in love.
So that should be interpreted literally or just metaphorically?
Lav Dafka has to be literal.
And when you read the Torah, is that according to this shot?
When you read what?
It was literally that it was Lav
Dafka, every medrash has to be accepted literally. That's a topic which is beyond the scope of today's discussion. There's a lot of different guidelines. The Maral talks about it, the Rashba talks about it, but even if it did happen literally, which other nisht, whenever something happens physically, that's only a reflection of a spiritual reality that's happening. The main thing anyways is the ruchnistic thing, even if it happened physically. So it's kind of irrelevant.
Well, physically it was hard to see there was any hava. You're under duress, fear.
No, that is.
They did. So they definitely, the Yidden were on the Madrega, they definitely didn't feel fear.
What?
They didn't feel fear. Even if it happened physically, they just felt Hashem's love. Let's move on though. This is a detail. So Hashem showered the Yidden with His love. He was megala to the Yidden His tremendous love for them. Hafti eschem amar Hashem. Hashem's love for us is bli gvul. And we were exposed. He exposed us to that love. And what's our reaction when we're exposed to that love? Of course, we accepted the Torah. Of course, even on a very simple sense, He showered us with His love. He took us out of Mitzrayim, and He destroyed the Mitzrayim, and He gave us the manna, and He gave us everything, right? But also, we experienced, we felt the awesome, tremendous power of Hashem's love. If we say Kemayim Apanim Lapanim Kelev Adam LaAdam, right? It's a natural thing that when you feel someone that hearts mirror each other. And we said when we felt that love of Hashem, of course we accepted the Torah. But this is a problem. Why? Because in later years we can come to Hashem and say, why did we accept the Torah? It was conditional. We accepted it because you revealed your love to us.
Now you don't.
But the moment you take away that love, the deal's off. The deal's broken. We accepted it. It was conditional. It was for a reason. There's a reason why. And that's a good time. That's a good time. Until it came along the time of Purim. What happened time of Purim? Time of Purim, there was no love. The love was gone. When we say the love is gone, we mean obviously Begilui. Hashem always loves us. We're talking about any manifestation of that love was gone. We were in Galus. For the first time as a nation, we were in Galus. Ever since Matan Torah, first time since Matan Torah. And a terrible Galus. Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. And then there's this Gzeira Lashmid La'arig this Kol HaYehudim to destroy all the Yidden. So forget about not being any love revealed. If anything, it's the opposite over here. And what happens? What happens? The Yidden, how did they react? They reacted by davening and learning and redoubling and re-intensifying their commitment to Hashem. And that makes no sense. That makes no sense. If the reason why we accepted the Eibishter, if the reason why we accepted the Torah is only because of the tremendous love, or because you might want to say because of the perks. At that time we were getting a lot of perks from Hashem. So then it makes no sense that 1,000 years later, by the time of Purim, that we should have accepted the Torah once again. And we should still have continued to embrace Hashem. We should have abandoned Hashem at that time. We should have abandoned the Torah. But as Alter Rebbe said, not one Yid did that. Not one Yid even considered abandoning Yiddishkeit, abandoning Hashem. And that's the Kibul Masha Kibul Kvar. That was the ultimate Kabbalah. And this is Mamish the Nakuda that Alter Rebbe is talking about here in the Perek, which is the Kabbalah that there was in times of Matan Torah. That Kabbalah was deficient. Why? Because it was imposed from above. In which way was it imposed from above? The Kaf Aleim Har Kegigis. And anything which is imposed from above is not something which is lasting. And that's why, well,
Called Mamayla.
it's called Mamayla Lamata, right? And what we're looking for is Mamata Lamayla. So therefore, Purim is the ultimate Yom Tov, more than Shavuos. And that's why it says that Yimei Purim Me'ela Lo Yavru, right? That all the Miyadim will be bottled except for Purim. Why? Because Purim is a Mashiach Dike Yom Tov. Because what is Mashiach? What did we learn? Mashiach is when we make a dira for Hashem, but one that's not imposed from above. The problem was that originally when Hashem was here by Har Sinai, that was Vayir, that Hashem al Har Sinai, he came down, which is very nice, but that's not what Hashem wanted. Hashem wanted it to be entirely through our Avodah. Where was it through our Avodah? That was Dafka by Purim. Alter Rebbe explains a lot of things based on this Yesod. But amongst them also, just one interesting idea. You know, if we talk about Dira B'Tachtoinim, Purim is the most Tachtoin Yom Tov that there is. Think into it. We work. It's a work day. Whether we actually work or not, but Malacha is not Aser. Even though the Gemara says that there was a Hava Mina, and Mordechai wanted to make it a Yom Tov, but it wasn't a Skabel. It's not a Yom Tov. It's not Asr B'Malacha. And moreover, the celebration of Purim, unlike Hanukkah, for example, Hanukkah, how do we celebrate? It's Halal V'Hidayah. Hanukkah is a very spiritual Yom Tov. There is no mitzvah really to eat. And I know we eat latkes on Hanukkah. It's a shayla whether Bechal there's any Geder mitzvah to that. Because the Iker Chanukah is Halal V'Hidayah. Halal V'Hidayah. Even though the Rambam mentions that also a Pesmishta V'Simcha, but that's not the Iker Yom Tov. It's a Ruchnistik Yom Tov. The Bach talks about it. The Bach talks about how the difference in Chanukah and Purim. The Chanukah is a Ruchnistik Yom Tov. And Purim is a Gashmistik Yom Tov. What's Purim? Mishta V'Simcha. We're eating or we're drinking. There is no halal even on Purim. We don't say halal on Purim. And what are the mitzvahs that are connected to Purim? Shalach manas, matanas levyonim, food and money. It's a very physical, it's a very, very unspiritual Yom Tov. Very unspiritual Yom Tov. And what's amazing is that we say that this Yom Tov, Purim, is the greatest of all Yom Tovim. And Ad Kedei Kach, when Mashiach comes, when all the other Yom Tovim will be bottled, it's the greatest of all Yom Tovim. And that's why when Mashiach comes, we won't be bottled. And as you said, the Simcha of Purim is greater than the Simcha of any other Purim, any other Yom Tov. There is no other Yom Tov where there's a Chiv of Simcha Ad L'Yada, which whatever, without going into what Ad L'Yada is, it's a Simcha which is greater than the Simcha that there is for any other Yom Tov. But this is all again, once we understand that the idea of Purim is the ultimate Dira B'Tachtoinim Yom Tov, based on, like as we're explaining here in Tanya. Dira B'Tachtoinim means in your eating and in your drinking. Normally, Shabbos and Yom Tov is a departure from our daily life. In Kabbalah, it talks about how Shabbos is Aliyah So'elamis. Shabbos, we move higher. Shabbos is we're not involved in the work. We're not involved in the malachas. We're not involved in the world. You know, the 39 malachas with which we created the Mishkan. So for 39 malachas, that's how we're busy. We're dealing with the world and we're elevating the world and making it to a Mishkan. And Shabbos, we have nothing to do with the world. We're not even making a Mishkan for Hashem on Shabbos. On Shabbos, we are moving ourselves a little higher and we're connecting to Hashem on a spiritual level. And that's nice. But the purpose of Shabbos, the whole purpose of Shabbos is not to stay Shabbos. The purpose of Shabbos is to give us chayis for the whole week, for the real work that has to be done. The real work is in the 6 days of the week when we have to deal with the world and we have to make the world into Dira B'Tachtoinim. And Purim is the ultimate Yom Tov. Purim is the ultimate Simcha, not by leaving the world, not by departing, but by being in the world. And we can have a Simcha and serving the Eibishter through the eating and through the drinking and through the Shalach Manas and Matanas Levyanim, etc. So this is the Maimer from the Alter Rebbe, and a Maimer Dibra Maschel Chayiv Inish L'B'Sumei in Torah. The Rebbe took this a step further. In a Maimer Va'ata Tetzava, It's actually the last mimer which the Rebbe gave out to everyone. So the Rebbe points out like this. Lat Tetzava is next week's parsha. And next week's parsha begins with the pasuk Va'ata Tetzava b'nei Yisrael v'yikhu elecha shemen zay yizach kasis lamoyer. So kasis lamoyer, the Frierdiker Rebbe says this. Kasis means crushed, and lamoyer means illumination, but not even illumination. Oyer is illumination. Moyer means the source of illumination. Moyer is where the light comes from. There's oyer and there's moyer. When kasis, when you crush, you reach the level of the moyer. And that is the idea of that when you crush a yid, what happens? What is revealed when you crush a yid? The neshama comes out. And not only the oyer of the neshama, but the mo'ir of the neshama. The mo'ir of the neshama is the very essence of the neshama, the source of the light of the neshama, which is a historical fact. And starting with the story of Purim, that when you crush a yid, when you put gezeiros on a yid, and when you make it for a yid difficult, to be a yid and to learn Torah and do mitzvahs, what do? You evoke by the yid the mo'ir, you bring about the neshama. This is a historical reality. The more you crush a yid, the more neshama you reveal. And what happens when you don't crush a yid? Take a look around the world today. You see what happens when a yid isn't crushed. In fact, as we know, what? We know that when there was the war in 1812 between Napoleon and the Tsar, so the Gedolei Yisrael were divided, but who should win? And the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Tanya, wanted the Tsar should win. And he said that if the Napoleon wins, it's going to be very good for the Yid and Begashmias, but Beruchnias, they're all going to have a nefila. And if the Tsar wins, it's going to be bad for the Yid and Begashmias. Materially, it's going to be bad for them, but spiritually, that's the best thing for them. And therefore, he wanted that the Tsar should win, and he didn't just want. He actually sent some of his chassidim as spies for the Tsar, and he did a lot. The Alter Rebbe earned a very big distinction. He had the title of a distinguished citizen for all generations, which all the Lubavitcher Rebbes had until 1917, until the Bolshevik Revolution, because he really stood up for the Tsar at the time.
From the Tsar?
Yeah.
From the Tsar?
Yeah. Really? And it was passed down throughout. In other words, any of the descendants of the Alter Rebbe had the status because of the Alter Rebbe's support of the Tsar in that war against Napoleon. Which again, it divided the Gedolei Yisrael. There was no unanimity about that. And this is the idea of kasis lamoyer. When you crush a yid, comes out the Mesiras Nefesh. And therefore, to a certain extent, it's not surprising what happened by the story of Purim. It's not surprising that when the Yidden are crushed, when the Haman comes along, the Yidden aren't going to abandon Hashem. To the contrary, they circle the wagons, and that's when the neshama comes out in its full force, and that's when we accept Hashem and we embrace Hashem. Also in Russia, it's hard to compare it to the Holocaust, because in the Holocaust there wasn't really gezeiros against Torah and mitzvahs. Not so much. It was especially gezeira against the bodies, lashmid galabi, the bodies of the Yidden. In Russia, when there was taka the gezeiros against Torah mitzvahs, you can be a Yid, no problem. But Torah mitzvahs, and
They all died of Kiddush Hashem in day to day.
There's no question they all died in Kiddush Hashem. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying is,
at the last minute they were singing on Imam.
that's correct. That also, but it's a different style. It's a different style. They're definitely, it's not about minimizing anything. We're talking about obviously Kedoshim with the Hiram. But the Gezeiros there were not against Torah mitzvahs so much. In Russia was against Torah mitzvahs. And there was an incredible Mesiras Nefesh on the part of many. And the Rebbe notes that many of these people who, when they were in Russia, had incredible Mesiras Nefesh for Torah mitzvahs and opening cheder and yeshivas and everything. And then they came to America. And that was it.
Job done.
Job done. They still daven 3 times a day, and they put on tefillin, and they were from and everything. But in Russia, they were stars. In Russia, they were pashat bali Mesiras Nefesh, giving everything. And they came to America. Suddenly, they're just average, nothing. And the Rebbe explains the why is that. This is the phenomenon of Kasis Lamoyer. Kasis Lamoyer means that when you're pressed, your neshama comes out, the essence of your neshama comes out. So the Rebbe says something very interesting. As it turns out, there is actually a common denominator between Matan Torah and Purim. Even though the Alter Rebbe differentiates and says by Matan Torah the Yidden accepted, it was imposed upon them. And by Purim it wasn't imposed upon them. But to a certain extent, even by Purim also it was imposed upon them. The difference was, by Matan Torah it was positive pressure. And by Purim it was negative pressure. By Matan Torah it was the love that was revealed from Hashem, and on Purim what happened was the Gzeira of Haban caused the Kasis Lamoyer. So to a certain extent, even that Mesiras Nefesh on Purim was also imposed. There is a difference, still is a difference, because when I'm doing something because the perks are what. So then, is that really what I want? By Matan Torah, we didn't know if that's what what the Yidden wanted. Maybe they were just impressed by Hashem's love and by the Nisim. By Purim, it was an expression of their essential self. So you can't compare. Purim was much greater than Matan Torah. Matan Torah, we don't know what the essential self of the Yidden wanted. Maybe they didn't want Torah. They were only there for the goodies. Purim, the Mesiras Nefesh of the Yidden expressed their essential self. But what caused that essential self to be revealed was the kasis, was the crushing which came about through Haman and through the Gzeres. So if we're going with the theory, as we're talking in Tanya, that the ultimate dira b'tachtoinim can't be imposed at all, so the ultimate dira b'tachtoinim is not from Matan Torah, and is even not from Purim. What's the ultimate dira b'tachtoinim? United States 2017. Or 2018. 2018. Tafshin Nayin Ches.
When you have full freedom.
Because we are in the unique situation. The Rebbe compares it to after the Nes happened by Purim. When Akati Avdi Achashverosh Shanan, the Yidden were still in Galus. So there was no Gili Elokus still. But there also wasn't any negative pressure. We live in the unique situation. There is no positive there is no positive pressure. There is no Gili Elokus. We don't experience the love of Hashem like it was by Matan Torah. We don't even experience the Gili like there was in the Beis HaMikdash or by the Nevi'im. We don't have that positive pressure pushing us to Yiddishkeit. And we also don't have the negative. We don't have the Kasis Lamoyer.
Squeezed, yeah.
We're not squeezed. We're not squeezed. So what's the job now? The Rebbe says we have to Kasis ourselves.
How do you do that?
We have to squeeze ourselves and reveal our own moyer, own neshama, and that's the final frontier. You know, the whole trajectory of Yiddishkeit started off with 1,000 years. You know, kicked off by Matan Torah, 1,000 years of Gili Elokus, and Hashem pushing us to do mitzvahs, and we had the Nevi'im, and you had the Nisim, and you had the miracles, and everything was going good and well. Okay, that crashed. The next 2,500 years or so was characterized or was by the opposite, which is higher. Purim is higher than Matan Torah, because now we're revealing the etzem of a Jew, the essence of a Yid. Because when you crush something, you reveal its essence. When you crush a Yid, you reveal its essence. But still, the ultimate is to bring Mashiach. We can't have the essence revealed by the crushing. Why? Because that means that it's still not my natural state. And the ultimate dira b'tachtoinim is when we elevate ourselves and the world around us, but not due to any imposition, not positive or negative. And that's the dafka today. That's dafka today.
They want to know what's the motivation if you don't have no external pressure, whether positive or negative.
So Rebbe points out, if you look in the pasuk, what's the next pasuk? Well, it's near time. Mechutz la'oyel moed, right? Yarach oisay. Anyone have a chumash over here? Second pasuk of Parshas Tetzaveh. Is there a chumash here? That's a trumah. That's this is the.
He's looking at the end.
Right.
The only time I played it, that's good.
אוהל מועד מחוץ לפרוכת אשר על הארון, עדות שערוכת הארון ולא מערב עד הבוקר, לפני השם חוק הסלם דורסיכם ולפני ישראל.
Okay, so ba'oil made. So it says they're me'erev ad boker, that it lasts. The oil lasts from the night until the morning. But then also, it says over there. Thank you. But sorry, the first pasuk it adds off lahalois ner tamid. It's a candle that burns constantly. And then it says that it's set up on the oil ma'id me'erev ad boker. So is it constant? Is it ner tamid or is it me'erev ad boker? Is it by night? So the Rebbe explains it depends what you're talking about. There's one kind of kasus which only lasts at night. At night. In a terrible time, a time of Galus, in time of Haman, times of Stalin, in times of what? That's by night. And when the day comes, that's it. The Meyer is gone. When you move to America, and everything is gone. And then there's Ner Tamid. The Ner Tamid is a light that doesn't go away, and that's when you squeeze yourself. When you squeeze yourself, that you're in America and everything is good. And you have good begashmius and you have good beruchnis, and we're such a unique time. Such a unique time that you want to be a Yid? Great, everyone loves you. You want to be, you don't want to be, you want to be Frei? Great, everyone loves you. Do what you want. Everything. We live in a Malchus Shel Chesed. We never had a time like this. You want to be a Yid, we respect you. You don't want to be Yid, we respect. Whatever your choice is, we respect. Today we're into choice. Whatever your choice is, doesn't make a difference. And so the only thing that's motivating a Yid is oneself, is reaching deep into oneself and committing to Hashem and connecting to Hashem. And that is the ultimate message of Purim, is this connection to Hashem, the Ner Tamid connection to Hashem, which followed the Nes Purim. That even that, regardless of what, a Yid is connected to Hashem, and not only essentially connected through the Etzem HaNeshama, but in the Yid's daily life, in the Machshava and Dibur HaMaisa, because a person becomes a Ner Tamid, and that makes us a Dir B'Tachtoinim and ready for Mashiach, because it's something which is not imposed from above, it's completely our Aveda.
Ties back to